Great comment. Great comment. Great comment. Let's see if there's another. Would you like to choose Mauricio's option? I mean, Mauricio's suggestion, the willdecide.com. I could copy and paste some of the questions in the wheel. Let's try that for at least 3 questions. Let's see how it works. Can you copy and paste one question on the ones that you used in the previous recorded session, so I can copy and paste the questions here in the We'll Decide. Is that possible? Can you copy and paste or type again? This one.
Miguel wrote and pasted a question, I think.
Yeah. I have his. I have, I think Laura is the other one here. Diana, thank you so much. Miguel? One that wasn't answered yet. Let me start from the beginning. Of course, Miguel's right here. Rocio's, I think it wasn't answered. I'm going to copy and paste Carlos's question. I think Mauricio's question was not answered yet. Carlos about sister care was answered. Laura's question as well. Catalina's, I think it wasn't already answered. And themes. Then we have Catalina's very interesting question about the. I think if you were a character. And then I think we should include it. I don't see any other, so that would be it. Apply will discussion, and here we go. Okay, it doesn't show the whole statement, the whole question. I think we somewhat can make it work. So how do we do this? Which you could spin the wheel, but I think I'll have to do it for you. So we ask one of you to do the exercise and see how it works. So the last classmate, the last student was Diana, right? So Diana has to choose who's next to answer the question.
I will choose Miguel.
Okay. Miguel, are you here?
I really want to hear his
Yes, I am.
Okay, with the same spirit, Miguel, I'm going to spin the wheel and let's see how it works. So the question is, think you're a character of a book. This is Catalina's question. Which author would you like to write your story?
Would you show the complete question to me once again, please? Because I didn't get to read it completely. It was, think you are a character of a book, which author? Sorry, Kat, I don't understand the way it is written.
Okay, so you need to imagine you're a character, and that as a character, a writer wrote your story. Who that writer would you like to be?
Okay, nowadays, in this present day, with the pandemic and the isolation and quarantine, I probably would like to be. Probably my life feels like a story written by Edgar Allan Poe. I'm just missing the zombies, the darkness, and the talking raven.
Okay, which characteristics from his writing style or from the literary devices that Edgar Allan Poe uses do you think are more appealing to you as a character?
Okay, I had to analyze the Black Cat. It's quite an interesting story, although nowadays it wouldn't scare a cat. But one thing that caught my attention profoundly was the fact that he used a lot of very detailed descriptions of the environment and the characters to convey this feeling of fear and uneasiness. And probably, I don't know, 100 years ago it worked perfectly, but nowadays, I mean, people still get scared from this story, but I think it was because of the descriptions being so detailed that makes relatable the story and very lively.
And which elements do you think should be changed in order for this story to be exciting these days? You said people are not scared anymore with things like, you know, plots like this. So which would you change? What would you add?
I probably will focus more in the human element on the because nowadays people is really excited and attracted by the psychological development of characters. Instead of using a metaphor such as a cat, I will go deeper into the mind of this unnamed narrator just to try to make it look even more like a person that could be your neighbor or even your husband.
That is scary. The possibility of having a serial murderer next to you looking like a normal person, that sounds scary, Miguel. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, that's fancy. That's fashionable these days. Probably having a cat or a talking raven, it is not. Probably the metaphor wouldn't work nowadays. But if you go deeper into the mind of the character and the madness and the downfall of the sanity of these characters, you will probably freak out more than a few people.
Absolutely. And I would say still some symbols that could be not really far-fetched, but they still work. You may work on the, as you mentioned, the downfall of the character in terms of the psychological downfall, by including elements that could connect with, I'm thinking about allusions, right, with mad characters in other stories in the past, or people who have killed other people. I'm not saying go as far as Cain, but you know, many important characters like, you know, serial killers. Maybe if you add a poster in the room. I don't
Probably
know.
a Jack the Ripper nowadays would be really effective to scare people. I mean, not the part where he kills prostitutes, but the part that he was never found.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Uh, so it was a crime that was not punished, and that absolutely adds to the mystery. Now, Miguel, you have to choose someone else to spin the wheel.
Who hasn't thought yet? Laura told, Mauricio did, Rocio did, Belen hasn't. I think I have Catalina, Rocio, Natalia, and Belen. Does any one of you want to talk?
Are you following Carlos's method, the 5-second wait, or you have different method?
I'm going even more random. I'm seeing the day. I'm seeing the earliest. If this was an alphabetical list, the earliest person in the list, and it happens to be Natalia, whose surname starts with a C.
Okie dokie.
So Nati, are you there? Are you there, Nati?
Yes, but I think I do not feel prepared to answer the questions, I think.
Which question is it? So, would you like to pick another person? I'm leaving the decision
Please.
to you.
I think
Pick
that
one.
That would be the question, Natalia. Read it before you judge if you are ready or not. First, second, let me. Okay. What elements of your first or second book report do you consider the most representative of the book itself? What elements?
Which elements of your first, second book reports do you consider the most representative of the book itself?
maybe I could answer something, and then you could try to make your.
Okay, go ahead, Katita. Thank you.
Thank you. The question and the elements. Yeah, the first book report we had to present was Moby Dick, and I think one of the most important aspects I would like to highlight was like what Moby Dick represented to Ahab. Like it was like I mean, I don't know if you remember the story, but Ahab wanted to kill Moby Dick, the whale, because he felt the whale represented like a sort of a authority, and also he was like obsessed with the idea of killing the whale as a sort of vengeance, as a sort of vendetta. I don't know how else to say it. And for the second book report, it was The Great Gatsby, and I think one of the most important aspects was, a theme, the theme of the American dream, and I feel it really interesting because we all have like a kind of a Chilean dream maybe. I remember that Carla said something related to us going to other regions to study and to get a better life in certain way, and maybe maybe we're falling in the same aspects that Gatsby did. But in the story, I remember that they um, not only Gatsby but also the Wilsons had like the notion of improving their socio-economical life, because they wanted to belong to the upper class, but they would never do that because they weren't born in the high society. Yeah, I think that I know that I have to prepare myself better for these questions, but at least I tried.
You're doing very well, Catalina. Do not diminish the value of your answers because I think they are quite relevant. Ahab, what a great character in Moby Dick. Now, it's hard to judge a character who lost a leg and eventually did not care about his own destruction while achieving this killing the whale, right? But again, it's an interesting character in terms of he's pursuing a sort of a dream because eventually it became an obsession, right? To kill the whale that had caused his miserable life, but eventually taking with him all the crew and the ship itself. So the idea of a great whale or the white whale being just a whale, I think it's up to the interpretation of the reader, but most of the readers might agree that it goes beyond being just a whale, but also probably representing or symbolizing hope or nature itself. And here you need to take a stance, interpreting the book from a more naturalistic point of view, implying that man is not the center of the universe and nature nature does not care, and then we're just one more brick in the wall. So it's not about us as human beings, is just the natural course of events. So from that perspective, it's a naturalistic work. And then if we take a look at it from a more romantic perspective, right? We might consider that actually Ahab is trying to seize the day, trying to follow his dream, trying to achieve his personal desire of catching and killing the whale. So Ahab and his relationship with the whale go beyond. They go beyond a mere hunting scene, right? They go beyond just the whaling industry in Nantucket, and then just one whaling ship being destroyed by a big white nature, right? And Katerina mentioned the American Dream in The Great Gatsby, and I like this image here on the left, the American Dream faded because of this sort of decaying society in which if you do you remember when this story when does this story take place? Do you remember the times? the years?
Yes, the story took place in 1922.
Right, and how do we, or what can we say about the context impacting the values at the time in people?
Yeah, I remember that at that time all the things that they value the most was partying and having possessions, and they wanted to belong to. I mean, they wanted to be rich, all of them. They wanted to dress in a certain way, to to be friends of important people. I don't know. I think I read somewhere that this American dream was unattainable. Like, um, I'm sorry. I think that I jumped to a different way.
Even you think so, I completely agree with you because of the this quality of a dream that cannot be achieved. We need to consider, and I think it's quite interesting, at least for me, that this novel was written in an in-between period of between two world wars, right? World wars, and that somehow the society turned out to be a society that was quite shallow in terms of, from my perspective, um, because they were trying to enjoying the day, coming out of a war in which many people were killed, and many people did not know actually if they were going to make it through the day, and they were going to live for the next one. So this sense of uncertainty that what was going to happen next day makes the society to actually again seize the day, enjoy whatever they were doing that day, having a good time that day, because next day they might be dead as well. So instead of having our society turning into a more not religious society, but going into an introspection or introspective process, going more spiritual, going through a war, and then maybe asking themselves, what did we do wrong to go to a war? How can we change this? Are we human beings maybe is it possible for us to change, not to go to another world war again? It didn't turn out that way, but it turned out um, into a more partying mood. So that's interesting. That it could have been gone in a different way, but it didn't. Right. So this attainability of the American dream, it's a concept that is explored not only in The Great Gatsby in the second, almost third decade of the 1900s, but also later on with other literary works which explore the American dream, not only for people who consider themselves to be true blood or true American, but also for immigrants who arrive right to this country to fulfill their own needs, and their own desires. And so you need to ask yourself when you read the Gatsby, what is the American dream for each character? Um, what's the American dream for Jay Gatsby? What's the American dream for Nicaragua? What's the American dream for Daisy? Um, or is there an American dream? Or is just mirage, right? Is it just something that it's imaginary and not something attainable, tangible? So interesting. Then does anyone would like to spin the wheel? Oh, we got the same question again. From the book reports you have presented, this one. From the book reports you have presented, in which way does the plot relate to the author? Anyone interested to answer the question, or shall I pick one person in the room?
I could answer it
Diana, go for it, please.
because I remember, well, I talked about the Raven, and when we were talking about this with Camila, I mean, discussing it, we realized that actually there were a lot of similarities between the Raven story and the story of Edgar Allan Poe, because in the story we can see that the main character's wife was dead, and that the author was, I mean, the main character was going through a lot of emotional issues. Maybe he had mental issues. He was feeling like he was going a little bit crazy. And investigating Edgar Allan Poe, we also realized that Edgar, by the end of, I mean, while writing this story, his wife was sick, and I think he projected what would happen once her wife died. So I think he kind of wrote his future in this poem, because I saw a video that said that Edgar Allan Poe was, I mean, he disappeared from the town he was living. He was found, I don't remember where, but he was found in a gut. I don't know if it's correctly said, but he was found on the street, and he was very ill. He had been beaten up, he was drunk, and he was mumbling nonsense. And nobody knew what had really happened to him. And he died like having this mental, I mean, these hallucinations, because it is said that his last days were spent in the hospital talking nonsense, like he was maybe writing out loud. So it's pretty much like the main character of the Raven. He was Edgar Allan Poe was little by little losing his mind.
Great comment, Diana. Great comment. And it makes me wonder whether the authors who write, for example, Gothic literature, or who write some scenes that could I don't know, blow our minds, are actually seeing what they are writing, and if maybe their minds are not working. I don't want to say they're not working properly, because the truth can be so subjective, right? Or it is mostly a subjective um, element in stories. But what if he actually saw this, or actually were feeling that he was experiencing this stories himself? If you consider, as Diana was mentioning, all these biographical facts, how miserable his life was, not feeling accepted in a family, and then having financial problems. And I'm sure that at some point he suffered from a psychological condition, besides drinking habits that got worse. So if you get all this combination of facts, sometimes affecting the mind of anyone considered to be normal, right? But you may have someone who is actually being shaped by the external facts. And just imagine, just imagining, or it's actually, so as I said before, the internet connection failed. Is the author actually imagining, or is experiencing reality as it is portrayed in the literary work? That's something to consider, right? Particularly in Gothic stories, it was created by Poe. Was he really mad? Was this just an act of imagination? Or he actually was describing the way he experienced reality?
Yeah, I think that's something very difficult to identify, because we will never be able to say to to know if they are just really imaginative, if they have this like very creative imagination, or if they are actually maybe uh, maybe if we don't know if maybe these books, these stories are a cry for help. It could be both, and we will we won't be able to know, or we won't know until it's too late, just like it happened to Edgar Allan Poe.
Right, right. And it's something so current, right? The fact that we're not seeing mental health as before. We're not looking at mental health problems as, you know, before, in which people were just taken to asylums and they were forgotten there. They were subjected to experiments to try what worked, to fix them, right? To fix their minds. Now, I think anyone can experience mental health problems depending on the what might trigger their condition, what's stressing for some. It may be driving others, right, to insanity. So we're changing the way we see mental health problems. I think anyone can be very vulnerable to pressure, right? And then, as Diana said, the tales might have been a way to maybe pay for the bread, but also it might be a way to tell the world that something was going on inside his head, and maybe a psychologist would have seen this as someone who really needed help. And that's also an interesting perspective of looking at literary works. And actually, the author is pouring himself or herself out, opening his heart or her heart and mind to the audience, and maybe there we can find some element of that requires psychological assistance, right? I'm sorry for taking up much of your time, because I think we need to finish by now. Um, I hope the conversation has been valuable. If it wasn't valuable, I wish you could let me know for next session how we can fix this. Um, so what we have for next sessions are on Friday session, we have Rocio and Daniela giving a book report, right? the book is not to be found in the syllabus. So if Rocio, you can type the name of the literary work in the chat room, that maybe could give an option or some time to the rest of your classmates to get ready to prepare something, right? To take a look at the book, okay? Then the following week, we're having Barbara's report. Barbara, do you think you can give it maybe on Wednesday session? What do you think?
Sí puedo. O sea, yes, I can.
All right. All right. So in the chat room, you can see Rocio's typing the title. Um, so their eyes were watching. Were watching, right? Watching God, because the W is very close to the E. Okay, good. So next, no, that's all right. That's all right, Rocio. So next Friday session, we're having Rocio and Daniela giving the book report for this book. Next Wednesday session, that would be on July the 8th, we're having Barbara's book report. We may or may not have the last book report on July the 10th, on Friday, which is, sorry, I forgot the name of it's a To Kill a Mockingbird, okay? We might have the book report on To Kill a Mockingbird on July the 10th, or
Teacher?
we may not. Yes, ma'am?
But I'm gonna use only 1 hour this Wednesday, so maybe they can present the same day after myself or before, as they please.
Yeah, that's totally a possibility. I'm going to double check that with them first, to have a confirmed yes, right? A confirmed option. Now, if we're not having a book report on July the 10th, the activity that we're going to be doing is the following. I'm going to divide you in groups of 3 or 4, depending on the number of students attending that session, okay? Probably 3, probably 4. For instance, now you're 10. I would say maybe 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 4. And the task is going to select, right? Because each literary period can be described as having specific elements or components, right? Or values or themes or contexts, right? They may respond to a socio-historical context in one way through the literary option. So I'm going to divide the groups, the class into 3 groups. So one group we're going to be focusing on romanticism and transcendentalism, both, okay? The other one is going to be focusing on realism and naturalism. And the other one is going to be discussing modernism and hopefully, if you may, if we may add, postmodernism. Okay, and you're going to create or elaborate a short summary of the main elements that we need to consider from this literary period, because they appear in some literary works discussed in class. So I don't know if you want to do that next class, or you may want to divide the class now, and then maybe have some more time to, gather some information. They are not presentations, they are not graded, okay? So you need just to gather information to share it with the rest of your classmates. Would you like to divide the class now? or we can do that next session.
Maybe now, so we can be prepared for next class.
Are you all okay with that?
Yes.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
All right. So we have, let's see, Alejandro, Bárbara, Belén, Carlos, Catalina, Diana, Laura, Mauricio, Natalia, Rocio. We have 10.
Can we
Okay.
choose or no?
Can you choose what?
The period we want to talk about, or to?
Okay. I'm going to. Okay. How do we do it? Do you want me to pick, or do you want to select?
Maybe in the chat we can say what period we want to talk about, and gather with some other classmates who want to talk about that same period, but obviously covering all the periods, so that none of us has no people to talk about it.
Well, sounds good to me if it does to you. If you're able to do that, what I want you to is I want you to have 3 groups, having roughly the same amount of students. Of course, it's not going to be possible, but I don't want you to have, for example, 4, 4, and 2. Okay, probably 3, 3, and 4. It would be okay.
Yeah. So 3 in each period, right?
At least 3 students in each literary period. Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
Anyone absent today? I think Daniela is not here. Constanza is not here. Martin is not here. Javiera Peredo is not here. Maria Paz, Nicole. So at least you have 6 more. Please ask them to join you in the groups. So if there are 10 plus 6, 16. If we divide this by 3, how many do we have? 16 divided by 3.
5 point something.
yeah, 5 and one is left.
Okay. So I'm totally delighted by the idea. So divide the class into 3. You choose the literary work, the literary periods, right? Remember to highlight the main tenets or the main ideas, elements, right, from each one of them.
Professor, can we project an image or something to explain the period for next class, next week?
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Any visual input is welcome.
Great.
Mm-hmm. Carlos asked, I love when they call me Mister. Okay. So what time that question for what when does it close? When does it close? That's a good question that I don't remember. I know that I extended the time, but I don't recall now so you're talking about the last one, right, Carlos? Last forum.
Yes, last one.
Okay, and the last one would be on realism, naturalism. Okay, what I have here is July the 12th. Is that okay? Is that convenient for you?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Yes, it's convenient. I don't
All
know
right.
anything class.
Okay, but let me know. I think we could, be quite flexible with deadlines. We can play a little bit with deadlines until, they become rigid because of external pressures, because of academic calendar. But I think we can play a little bit with them after July the 12th. Okay? So if it's not much to ask, as soon as you are ready with the decision, meaning I want to work with Pepito, Juanita, Carlitos, and we want to work on, you know, any of the 3 literary periods. Whenever you're ready with that, let me know in Teams, okay? Very briefly, just to know who is going to be doing what, okay? Because I may have some suggestions, so I need to know whom I'm going to send these suggestions. So as far as I know, Rocio Realism. That's all I have now. Okay. So
Teacher?
yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you if we could like post in the romantic. I don't remember the name of the last one. Realism.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, can we post something related to the Jazz Age or modernism?
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you're you mean modernism? Yes, I think in terms of modernism, the Jazz Age was not fully explored. For example, think about the role of women. Think about the ban on alcoholism and the rise of crime. I think that that's also very important to remember. Those aspects were mentioned, but mainly not fully covered, particularly their impact on the American society. So, yeah, and besides Jazz Age, you have the Harlem Renaissance, and the Harlem Renaissance, it's a big, very big cultural movement that not only applies or not only relates to literature, but also to music and dance. I mean, the African American culture bloomed during this age, and actually, we now probably see or hear in movies they talk about the I don't know, the Bronx, and we all connect this to gangsters or to, you know, very criminal lifestyle. But before, right, Manhattan, Bronx, and all these area where it was an area populated with art. I mean, it was full of artistic movements connected with different areas of the artistic life of African American people. So there's definitely a lot of ground there to dig. Okay, so absolutely, please do so. Yeah, Jazz Age, Harlem Renaissance. So go beyond the roaring 20s and explore all the African American community because they are very rich in terms of all the arts. Guys, do you have any other questions? So I'm going to stop recording.